What a match awaits us in the elite grappling scene. We have champ v champ, ADCC double champ, Kaynan Duarte going up against CJI, big boy division champ and $1 million winner, Nicky Rod. And that's going to take place on Friday, April 18 at Who's Number One. Welcome to the Jiu Jitsu Oracle. We're always saying, Calum, that we want booking that makes sense. We want guys to go up against each other with storyline. Well done to WNO. I think this is a great match. What's your thoughts on Kaynan Duarte against Nicky Rod, and do you have any early predictions for it?
Yeah, this is obviously the match that makes the most sense. Nicky Rod going 4 for 4 with submissions, winning the over 80 kilo CGI division, and then Kaynan going 7 for 8 with the double gold at ADCC. Both similar weight, both won their respective competitions on the same weekend, and the biggest weekend in jiu-jitsu history. Obvious matchup to make, and I'm glad that it is happening.
Who do you think will win?
It's a tough one. They're faced 2 times in the past, both quite close to each other. Around 2019, Kaynan beat him on points at ADCC in the finals, and then in a super fight shortly after that, Kaynan won by heel hook. Obviously, it's been a while since then, and both of them have evolved their games a lot since then. Tough matchup to pick. I think physically they're matched quite evenly. I think Nicky Rod is better at explosive type athleticism, moving people through space, but I think from a pure strength perspective and stopping people moving through space, Kaynan's got the advantage. So I think they're matched quite evenly physically in different ways. Kaynan probably got a more well-rounded game. Whether he's going to wrestle with Nicky Rod or not, I'm not sure. Back in ADCC, pulled guard on him to wrestle up, so we might see similar strategy again, but I do think getting on top for Kaynan is going to be something that he's going to need to try and do, and I think he is capable of doing that. Just how he goes about that is yet to be seen. From Nicky's perspective, I think if he does get on top, how he's going to approach the guard of Kaynan. Kaynan's got a very good flexible guard for that weight class, very good guard retention and pummeling, so whether he's going to be able to get to his body locks. Seen him struggle against guys around that weight with good guards before, with guys like Victor Hugo, which we'll speak about that match coming up soon. So lots of interesting kind of speculation points in the match, but very even. I think it could go either way. I'd probably lean slightly towards Kaynan at this point of view, though.
We'll have a full prediction show near to the event. This is the Jiu Jitsu Oracle. I got excited and just launched straight into talk about this match, which I'm really looking forward to seeing. But give the Jiu Jitsu Oracle a like, a subscribe, a follow, tell your friends. I'm Ross. That's Calum. We're here to talk about the elite jiu-jitsu scene. Is this match going to determine who is the undisputed heavyweight champion of the world? Because we have ADCC double champ Kaynan against CGI champ Nicky Rod. One could argue that Gordon Ryan is the current undisputed heavyweight champ in of the world, and he's not in this match. But an issue I have with Gordon is his inactivity when it comes to this kind of chat. I think he had one match in 2023 against Patrick Gaudio. Then he had a warm-up for the ADCC, a win against Josh Saunders, and then he had 2 matches at the ADCC, both super fights, one against Felipe Pena, one against Yuri Shimoz. Obviously, he won all those matches. He last faced Nicky Rod at 2022, and he won an overtime victory under EBI rules at UFC FPI. We've been waiting for a rematch between those guys. It's nearly 3 years since that match took place. I think we need to see it happen. So what's your thoughts on whether we crown Kaynan or Nicky Rod as the undisputed champ, whoever emerges victorious from their match? Is Gordon still in the mix when it comes to that? Or do you, like me, kind of like put him aside for now because of his run of inactivity?
Yeah, I think he's still obviously the big name at that weight in jiu-jitsu in general, but speaking about the guys that are currently the best in that weight class, I think it is between these 2 guys. like you say, been quite inactive, so I don't quite feel like he's in the conversation for currently the best grappler in the world around that weight. I think having the two guys that had the best performances from the respective two biggest competitions of last year match up against each other makes total sense, especially given the event was on the same weekend and athletes couldn't compete in both. So Nicky Rod winning CGI, Kaynan getting double gold at ADCC makes perfect sense. And even though there is other guys in the conversation like Victor Hugo, who's got victories over both of these guys, Victor Hugo did not win either of those competitions and has never won either of those competitions. So just because of that, I think this is definitely a good place to start in crowning that champion. Like I say, there is other guys that you could throw in the mix, and it would be really cool if someone could get something organized where all these guys were in like a competition or some sort of prolonged tournament format. But I think, yeah, Nicky Rod, Kaynan, Victor Hugo, Felipe Pena, Nicholas Merigali when he's healthy and comes back, and Gordon Ryan if and when he comes back.
Okay, so Victor Hugo might throw a spanner in the works when it comes to my undisputed title idea, because he's going to take on Nicky Rod at UFC Fight Pass Invitational 10 on Thursday, March the 6th. Fair play to Nicky Rod. He's not sitting about with his $1 million prize. He's getting out there and trying to avenge losses that he previously had. I'm calling this the Nicky Rod Revenge Tour, going up against Kaynan, going up against Victor Hugo. This is the match we never got to see at CJI because Lucas Kennard managed to submit Victor Hugo early on in the comp when we thought we were going to see a Nicky Rod v Victor Hugo final. So once again, great booking to put these two guys against each other. How do you think this one's going to go, Calum?
I think this is a tough stylistic matchup for Nicky Rod. It was close last time, so I definitely think it can go either way. But yeah, like I was saying with Kaynan, that flexible guard at that size, Victor Hugo is a decent bit bigger than Nicky Rod, even though Nicky Rod's very athletic and agile for that weight class, which will obviously go in his favor. But a guy that big with that flexible of a guard, with that ability to kind of bench press him off to a certain extent, even if he does get past his legs, very dangerous from his guard as well, and then really good on top. So tough stylistic matchup. Even though Nicky Rod had that amazing performance at CGI, I would probably still hedge my bet slightly towards Victor Hugo going into the match. I just think stylistically it is a tough matchup, especially with Nicky Rod's passing style being very body lock heavy and Victor Hugo playing a lot of guard flat on his back. It's hard to initiate a body lock with a guy that's flat on his back, adamant on pummeling his legs.
Okay, well, it's awesome to see big matches happening in grappling. Awesome to see promotions trying to get guys together in matches that make sense. I was thinking this year, 2025, like the big one on the calendar is CJI 2, the dates of which have been confirmed, August 30 and 31, and it's running a quintet style competition. So that was the one that was, looking like the big event of the year. But now we're seeing UFC FPI put on exciting matches. We've got WNO booking an exciting match. And it's great to see it's shaping up to be a good year of grappling. Now, let's talk about two events that happened really recently. We had Polaris in the UK running one of their squads intercontinental tournament matches, and we had WNO 26, which had a bunch of super fights. So let's talk about Polaris first, Calum. It was Europe against North America. Europe emerged victorious, 18-12. We saw loads of matches at the event. I thought it was fantastic. What were your thoughts on the squads format, what we saw, etc., before we get into some specific, maybe like performances or techniques that we enjoyed?
Yeah, I really enjoyed watching the event. I think it was one of the most entertaining jiu-jitsu events I've seen. Always entertaining to see those team-like events, but I think the changes they made to the rules and the scoring took it to another level. So previously in a lot of these quintet style matchups, you'd have your 5v5, and pretty much it would be last person standing. So if it was, or no, it would be, was it points they used before? Yeah, it was points they used before for a submission. So basically, if there was a draw, no points would go on the board. If there was a submission, depending on the weight class, it would either be 1 or 3 points, and you would end these kind of events with pretty marginal victories, like winning by 1 or 2 points. And a lot of matches, you would just try to kind of stall out if you were against one of the top guys from the other team. So the change in this event in particular, every match had a point on the line, so even if it went to a decision, there would be a decision made by the judges and the point would go to either side, and then they still kept the rule with submissions being more points. So if you were against someone lighter or your own weight class and you got a submission, it would be 2 points, or if you were in the lighter division submitting a bigger guy, it would be 3 points. So I think the fact that there was a point on the line for every match made it a lot more exciting. You couldn't really think about stalling out too much. Obviously, if you were against someone really dangerous, you could try and not get submitted and just concede the 1 point. But I think everyone was fighting to win each of their matches, which made it a lot more exciting.
Okay, so for those watching on YouTube, you'll have seen Mateusz Szczecinski on the screen celebrating his win over and over again. So maybe Calum can find another video to put up there to show something else that happened at the event. But I want to talk about Mateusz Szczecinski. He was the MVP. I think under this format, it's so important to have a finisher on your team that can rack up submission wins and rack up the points. I think Szczecinski's the hottest free agent out there when it comes to guys trying to put teams together for CJI. I don't know quite what CJI are going to insist on, whether guys have to all be from a specific gym or not. But if I was trying to put a team together for a Yiga or the Craig Jones Invitational Quintet Tournament, Szczecinski would be probably like my #1 pick. What do you think?
Yeah, I think the rule set, that one in particular, really suits him well. So he's a very fast starter, and his game, especially in no-gi, relies quite a lot on friction. So, you know, the longer matches go, the more sweat that goes on. I think that is a detriment to Mateusz's game in particular. I think the drier it is, the better it is for him. He's a quick starter, and as well, the fact that points score a lot more. And there was a whole thing made about, are you like a net positive or a net negative in the commentary? He was obviously the biggest net positive, and I think that's due to his game. So say that you won 2 matches by decision and then you get submitted by a guy your own size, you're a net 0 at that point, just the way the scoring works. And the way the tournament's set up, you're most likely going to lose matches at some point. So you're going to lose points for your team at some point, just because you'll either get a guy that will come out and kind of shut your game down, or you'll be tired from your last few matches. So every single person lost matches from either team. So you're going to lose points, but it's about what you can do while you're on the mats and while your run is going on. And if you're a guy like Mateusz that can get submissions down, get points on the board before you're put out, then that's going to give you the biggest net rating for your team, which is what we saw from Mateusz. So I think that rule set really suits him well. And yeah, any of these rule sets with shorter rounds where you're needing to score high points for your team with submissions, he's definitely going to be a very valuable player to be sought after.
So it was winner stays on, and there was no chance to substitute someone out, which I thought was good. And another thing I thought was good was you can't draw and just both guys get eliminated from the situation. So you can't just like stall your way to a draw against someone who's really, really dangerous. They get removed from the lineup. And then you've got a kind of like a little victory because that guy's not in anymore. So when Mateusz won, he stayed on. Now, given the length of the match, so it's 2 45-minute halves. So across 45 minutes, we saw like, I don't know, 9 or 10 matches, right? So given the caliber of opposition, you're not going to be able to stay on for like 9 or 10 matches in a row. I think the most we saw was like 2 or 3. But across that 2 or 3, if you can rack up some submission victories, that's hugely beneficial for your team. So I think it was 1 point for a victory, 2 points for a submission victory within your weight class, and 3 points for a submission victory outside of your weight class. So having those guys being able to win by sub is really helpful. And like Calum said, if you win 2 by sub in your weight class, that's 4 points. If you then lose, okay, you've lost a point, but that's 3 points overall. So that's a big number to add to the tally. I thought the 5 minutes was great. The action was super fast paced. I do like seeing 10-minute and 15-minute matches as well. Like, I think they have their place in grappling, but I think I enjoyed the rapid fire nature of just getting guys on. Like, there was loads of people that I wanted to see in the squads face off against each other. So I think like getting to see those guys multiple times across the night was really helpful as well, because sometimes it's a bit of a shame if you're really looking forward to seeing someone and then they win their super fight really quickly and then you don't get to see them again. So I like getting to see guys multiple times. Anything else on the event, Calum?
I think the squads were the star of the show, so I don't think there's much worth talking about. There was another super fight, but yeah, it was the squads that were the main topic.
Yeah,
Show.
Dominant victory for Helena Crevar over Annabelle Lopez Beard. So we'll see what happens next with Helena's progression. Just on the squad, so we have the second male matchup. It's going to be the South America squad against Asia Oceania, and then Asia Oceania, and then they're going to face off against Team Europe in the final later in the year. And there's also going to be a women's squad event as well. The other big event that was on recently, WNO 26. What were your overall thoughts of that event, Calum?
Yeah, I thought that was a good event. Some good matches on the main card. Wasn't one that had me the most excited going into it, but I think the matches were pretty entertaining to watch.
Okay, well, I'll talk about the main event while you get a graphic up on the screen. So in the main event, we had Diego Pato win against Keith Krikorian. And a couple of points from me before I bring you back in for your thoughts. One, well, Diego Pato won, as you'll be able to see if you're watching on YouTube. Two, I thought Keith Krikorian's leg lock defense was very, very good. And I think, although we did see some leg lock finishes at Polaris, I thought in general, leg lock defense was really, really good. And if you think back to like the explosional leg lock finishes that we saw, most popularized most by the Danaher Death Squad, I think leg lock defense is advanced so far since then. And even like I watched Mike Perez against Mateusz Szczecinski was a really interesting one to watch for me at Polaris. I thought Mike did a really good job early on in the connections to make it difficult for Mateusz to get into his legs. But yeah, Keith did an excellent job against Diego, dealing with the leg threat. But then I thought Pato was a little bit Gordon-esque in his play. And by that, I mean, while people were working out how to defend Gordon Ryan's leg locks, he was developing a brutal top game with massive passing pressure threat. And when he got to mount, he was really dominant. I thought Pato was super dominant in top position. So yeah, very impressive victory from him. And I liked his play on top. What do you think, Cal?
Yeah, no, I agree. He got to mount pretty early in the match from Keith diving over from a front headlock, and it looked like he had good control there, even though Keith did get out when he showed his back. But yeah, no, I think his top game is very underrated. He's obviously known mostly for his guard and his leg locks, which probably are still the best part of his game. But even against Baby Shark at ADCC, he showed off his top game very well. So I think that's a massive tool in his arsenal. I think the wrestling is probably the biggest weakness for him, even though I'm sure he is a good wrestler. We just don't get to see that as much. He did stand a little bit in that match, but his guard's amazing, and if he's able to get into the legs so then get on top, then that's when he can really show off his top game.
Okay. Is there any footage of Roberto Jimenez's armbar victory over Elder Cruz. And while you look for it, I'd like you to consider this. Whose armbar victory are you giving best armbar victory of the weekend to? Is it Roberto against Elder, or is it Mateusz Szczecinski against PJ Barch? And maybe you can go back and talk a little bit about Mateusz's shotgun armbar as well.
That's a tough one. They're both might be the two best armbar submissions of the year. Obviously, we don't know how the year is going to play out, but I'm sure they would both be up there. Both very quick as well. I probably preferred Mateusz's, but you could probably say Roberto's was more exciting just because of the nature of it. But yeah, both very impressive, very early out the gates for both of them. As you can see from Roberto's there, I think you got double-legged off the mat at the start of the match, and then pretty much as soon as they locked up after that, he just flung straight into this flying armbar, which was really cool to see. And then Mateusz's one was from like a far side K guard. When your opponent's grabbing your shin, you can just drag it through and hit that armbar. Same one that he hit against Gary Tonin, so it's kind of becoming a secondary special move for Mateusz after a shotgun armbar.
All right. We're not doing play-by-play here. We'll just touch on the highlights from the event. Can we talk a little bit about Kaynan Duarte? Thought was a very impressive performance from Kaynan, and once again, we see his ability to come over from being primarily a gi grappler into the no-gi scene and look very, very dominant. What did you think about Kaynan's performance?
Yeah, Kaynan looked really good. The match kind of went as I expected it. I thought he would get to top and look very dominant on top. It was cool to see him implement this like seated katagatame, which is really became a lot more popular in the past few years, but is very much more of a move you see in no-gi, so you can tell that he's really studying the no-gi game and adding that into his arsenal, and that was what he managed to get the finish with.
Yeah. What do you think Kaynan should do next, no-gi wise? Like, what do you think his progression here should be? I mean, do you ultimately see him trying to win like an ADCC?
I was really surprised just with how well he was doing on the Who's Number One scene that he didn't. Like the fact that he beat J-Rod and then J-Rod got second at ADCC, pretty close to one another, kind of says it all. I think he has the potential to beat someone like a Giancarlo Bodoni. So I was really surprised and quite disappointed that he didn't do that. I don't know if he personally doesn't feel like he's ready, but like I say, that win over J-Rod says it all, in my opinion. Even though J-Rod, you know, he's not like the kind of guy that is unbeatable at every competition. He lost in this event as well, but I think Kaynan has the potential to win ADCC for sure, especially in that last 88 kilo bracket, which was a little bit less full of talent compared to normal with some of the guys jumping over to CGI. So I hope he does consider doing CGI and ADCC in the future, and I hope he takes on some of the higher level no-gi competitors in these Who's Number One matches.
Well, do you think we'll see an Art of Jiu-Jitsu team involved in the CGI Quintet event? How do you think they would do? Because we've seen a couple of their guys do really well on this show. And then Kaynan against Bodoni, is that a match we need to see?
I think Kaynan versus Bodoni is a match we need to see. Would love to see that match. As far as the AOJ team, I don't know, because I think AOJ are very particular about kind of protecting their reputation, and from what I've heard, the people in charge of AOJ can have some say in whether people do competitions based on whether the coaches think they can win it or not. So I don't know if they'd be willing to put themselves out there, especially branding it as like a team. You know, if they were to lose early doors, they're very protective over their reputation. So I don't know personally. I don't see them doing it, but I would definitely like to see it. But yeah, just from what I've heard, I don't know how likely that would be.
Yeah, and obviously New Wave / Danaher Death Squad previously were quite protective, selective in how they go about things. So, and obviously you've got the whole history with those guys and B Team / Craig Jones. So we'll see if they get involved in CGI2, but I think AOJ and New Wave being involved would be obviously preferable for us fans to get to see those guys in action. But yeah, Kaynan against Bodoni. Guys, you've done tremendously well to make Nicky Rod against Kaynan and Nicky Rod against Victor Hugo. There's another match that we hope to see in the near future. Kaynan against Bodoni. Okay, Anything else across those events that you want to talk about, Calum?
Yeah, I think there was a good match between Ronaldo and J-Rod. Saw that going either way. Went slightly towards J-Rod, but I thought Ronaldo could definitely win, and he did do that. I think that's another guy coming over from the gi that has made good adjustments in his game and has got a lot of potential in no-gi as well. So looking forward to seeing him in the future, hopefully continuing to compete in no-gi and doing some of these bigger events like CGI and ADCC as well.
That was a good wrestling match, which you don't always see across 15 minutes, but like those two guys kept the pace high. There was lots of like exchanges on the feet, back and forth, initiations, counters. So well done to both guys. Super exciting match. And Ronaldo Jr., Atos, yes?
Yeah.
So don't sleep on Atos when it comes to this talk about team competitions. I think like they are, it's kind of, I suppose a little bit strange that actually like, when it comes to like a lot of chat about the best teams, you know, Atos isn't always like mentioned in the same breath as the likes of New Wave and AOJ. Like people tend to gravitate towards those other ones first. And I think like Atos had an awesome year last year when you look at their achievements. So, and if they go in, they're going to have guys like Ronaldo Jr. on their team. And yeah, they're like, he is hard to beat, you know, with his all-round grappling ability, determination, scrappiness. So yeah, that was a super exciting match. And yeah, the sort of thing that like I think shows should be trying to put on. Meanwhile, you still need those stars in the main event position. So good to see Nicky Rod headlining some shows coming up. Right. I'll ask you once again, anything else you want to touch on from those shows?
No, I don't think so. I think we've got the big news covered and the two events that happened, so I think we can leave that there.
Brilliant. Well, we'll be back soon because we've got Nicky Rod against Victor Hugo coming up on March the 6th. And our aim is to keep you across all the big matches in the elite grappling scene. So we'll be back soon with another edition of the Jiu Jitsu Oracle.